Early in my career, I thought I did everything right. I ran the campaigns, hit the deadlines, built the decks, checked every box on every brief my manager handed me. But honestly, I still failed. Projects that didn't deliver, strategies that went nowhere, clients who were disappointed even when the work was technically solid. And often, what I did didn't actually drive real revenue. It took me years to understand why. I was answering the question I was given, but what I didn't realize then was that I was never asking whether it was the right question to begin with. If I could go back and give my 25-year-old self one insight, it would have saved me hundreds of wasted hours, a handful of relationships I burned through, and more than a few career decisions I'd make differently. That insight is what this video is about. Aloha, I'm Brent Shiratori, and this is Idea Marketing. Today, I want to talk about the single realization that separates CMOs from junior marketers. And I want to be clear about what it isn't. It's not an experience. It's not budget authority. It's not knowing the right agencies or having the right credentials. I want to talk about a mental model, a way of approaching every ask, every brief, every campaign before you do a single thing. Here's what we're going to cover. First, what the model actually is and why it isn't as obvious as it sounds. Then, why junior marketers almost never use it by default. How it changes the questions you ask going into a project, and finally, what it looks like when you actually apply it. By the end, you're going to see your job differently. And if you're already in a senior role, this is the framework your junior team needs to hear. Let me start at the core of it. True marketing strategy isn't a tactical to-do list. Junior marketers tend to equate strategy with activity. Facebook ads, SEO, posting on Instagram, launching email campaigns, building a content calendar. But none of those things are strategy. They're just marketing activities. And activities are the answer to what are we doing? Strategy is the answer to why are we doing it and what are we actually trying to change? The first thing I do when I start any new engagement is asking why they're doing each marketing activity. What's the goal? Has it been effective? That question, asking about the why, sounds like an obvious starting point, but it almost never gets asked. And the reason it doesn't get asked is that the people doing the work often don't think it's their responsibility. When a client comes to you and says, "We need to rebrand," that's rarely what they really need. When a CEO says, "We need to fix our social media," that's often not their real ask. The real motivation is almost always one of a few things, like corporate politics, the pressure to look productive, fear of falling behind, or someone needing reassurance that things aren't as bad as they feel. I remember one of my past clients asked for a whole advertising campaign because one of their board members saw one of their competitors come out with a fancy new TV spot. There was another time we had to design a whole new brand identity system and color palette, even though we had just done a full brand refresh a few years prior, just because a new marketing director was hired and wanted to make her mark. If you accept an assignment at face value and start working immediately on the rebrand or the social calendar or the Q4 campaign, you've only solved for the symptom, but you may have missed the actual problem. This is the real reason why so much marketing work lands flat, even when it's technically well executed. You could have a sound strategy, compelling creative, and a well-placed media plan. But if it's solving for the wrong problem, you'll ultimately fail. Any senior marketing leader's first job is diagnosis. Only then can you develop the right strategy and the right execution based on that. Here's how to think about your marketing projects differently. You have to understand that marketing is a layered architecture that connects a company's deepest business goals to the customer's clearest next step. You can't build the architecture from the middle. You have to start at the foundation. Junior marketers work from the execution layer up. They ask, what should we post? What are we running? What's the content plan? And they hope it adds up to something. A senior marketing leader works from the foundation down. They ask, what is the business actually trying to achieve? What role should marketing play in getting there? What's the current constraints? And then, only then, what should we build? You see how those lead to a fundamentally different kind of work? When you hear, we have a lead problem, don't start writing ad copy. First ask, is this a traffic problem? Maybe not enough people are finding us. Or is it a conversion problem? People could be finding us but not taking the action we want them to. Maybe it's a positioning problem because we're attracting the wrong people entirely. Could it be a sales handoff problem? Leads are coming in, but something breaks between marketing and close. And sometimes, marketing isn't the constraint at all. Sometimes it's the pricing. Sometimes it's the product. Sometimes it's that the sales team is closing customers who churn in 6 months, and the whole system is backing them. If you don't get that answer before you start building, everything downstream is on a shaky foundation. Here's what the shift looks like in practice. Junior marketers start with marketing goals, like increase email open rates, grow Instagram followers, improve engagement, get more website traffic. And those are all important marketing goals, but they're not business goals. So here's a better question to start from. What revenue number are we trying to hit? And what's the gap between where we are and where we need to be? Everything you do in marketing should center around those two things, the number and the gap. At the end of the day, your role as a marketer is to drive incremental revenue that wouldn't have been achieved if not for your intervention. If you don't end up making more money because of whatever marketing tactic you executed, it doesn't matter. So stop looking at email marketing as a channel to optimize for opens. It's a revenue mechanism, which changes the question to, what does this channel need to do ultimately to lead to a sale? And is email even the right tool for that job? Those questions immediately separate the work that just feels productive from the work that actually matters. You stop reporting on metrics that look good, but don't connect to outcomes the business actually cares about. You stop spending time on things that feel like progress, but don't drive revenue. And your recommendations carry more weight in the room, because you're not talking about marketing, you're talking about the business. One of the most valuable things a senior marketing leader brings isn't a comprehensive audit or a long list of recommendations. It's the ability to identify the single constraint that, when removed, makes everything else easier. Ask a junior marketer to assess a marketing program and they come back with 12 things. Here are all the gaps, here are all the opportunities, here's everything we should be doing differently. And all of it might be true, but probably most aren't actionable or aren't worth the resources to even fix them. You can't fix 12 things at once, and if you try, you'll probably fix none of them properly. You'll spread your resources across a dozen improvements, make marginal progress on all of them, and still wonder why nothing has changed. The real question isn't what's wrong, it's what's the thing that, if we change it, makes everything else more effective or more efficient. That takes a specific kind of thinking. You have to hold all the variables at once, see how they connect, and make a call on which one is the real linchpin. It also requires saying no to the other 11 things. You have to be able to say, here is the one thing we're focusing on now. Let's fix that first. Then we'll reassess and move on to the next thing. Now, here's the skill that most junior marketers never develop. Knowing when to say, marketing can't fix this. This is genuinely the hardest thing in this industry, because everything about the way you're trained pushes against it. You've been rewarded for saying yes, for being solutions-oriented, for coming back with a plan. You've internalized the idea that a marketer's job is to find a way. But sometimes the problem isn't a marketing problem. Maybe the product doesn't fit the market, the pricing is inconsistent with the positioning, operations can't deliver what marketing is being asked to promise, the sales process is closing customers who churn in 6 months. So you're stuck replacing customers you never should have won in the first place. If you build a campaign on top of those structural issues, you may make the company look better in the short term, but if the underlying problems stay broken, the campaign ultimately won't work, and marketing will inevitably be blamed. The ability to sit across from a CEO and say, I don't think more marketing is going to solve this, requires a level of conviction that most people avoid. Because the pushback is immediate. You sound like you're making excuses. You sound like you don't believe in the product. But trust me, the alternative is worse. You have to be able to name the real constraint, even when it's uncomfortable. That builds credibility faster than any successful campaign, because you're demonstrating that you're thinking about the business, not just protecting your scope of work. That's a different kind of professional, and it's the kind the best organizations actually want. And honestly, if that's not what your company wants, you should probably start looking for somewhere that will. Because in the long run, you'll never be able to build long-term success. I mean, honestly, you're just set up to fail. Michael Porter said the essence of strategy is choosing what not to do. Not what to do, what not to do. Junior marketers try to cover everything, every channel, segment, every touch point, but every resource you split is a resource that you can't concentrate on. Every channel you have to commit to is a channel that never builds enough momentum to matter. If you try to win every customer segment, you'll just dilute the message for the audience that would find the most value in your product. Real strategy closes doors deliberately. And that takes confidence because it looks like you're leaving something on the table. But the companies that win don't win by doing the most things. They win by doing the right things with relentless focus over a long enough period of time that it actually builds something. Saying no to the wrong opportunities is the prerequisite to doing the right ones justice. I want to leave you with one question. Ask it at the start of every assignment or project. What's the actual problem we're solving, and how will we know when it's solved? So let's break that down. What's the actual problem forces you past the surface level. It requires you to ask why enough times that you get to the real thing underneath. It means not accepting the first answer as the final answer. How will we know when it's solved forces accountability. It converts a vague objective into a measurable outcome. It means you're building towards something specific, not launching work into the void and hoping something sticks. Most marketers skip this entirely. They assume the original brief is correct, so they go from brief to execution, even though the brief is almost never completely correct. That's not a criticism of the people writing them, it's the nature of the work. The person handing you the assignment is too close to it. They're describing what they see, but they're not always describing what's true. Your job is to find that gap. That's what CMOs do, and it starts before you write a single word of copy, build a single ad, or touch a single campaign. If you start with that question every time, you're already thinking differently than most people in the industry. If this is clicking with you, there's a lot more on this channel. We go deep on marketing strategy, the actual thinking that goes into building work that drives revenue, not just marketing for marketing's sake. Subscribe if you haven't already, and check out my other videos. Take a look at the recommendation on screen right now. Remember, you don't need to buy more ads when you have better ideas.